Welcome everyone to the Word on Fire show. I'm your host, Joseph Glore, and I'm here with the illustrious man in black here, Bishop Robert Barron. Bishop, good to be here with you in the studio in Santa Barbara.
Joe, always a pleasure to be on with you.
What a fun weekend we have coming up here. Everyone's in town. We got our big filming for the Mass series tomorrow.
That's right. So we've got the Spirit Juice Studios from Chicago. We work with them a number of times, and they're in town now to do this taping tomorrow, and it's always kind of a big deal. I'll be giving 6 20-minute talks tomorrow that'll be filmed. It'll be in front of a crowd of about 1,000 people at Our Lady of Sorrows Church right here in Santa Barbara. And our Word on Fire team is in here. So yourself and Ann Strauss, and we've got Cassie and Caroline from the office in Chicago, and we have John Carney and his wife Emily. So all kinds of people are in town.
Jolene is here?
Yeah, your dog, Jolene, who's always kind of sets the tone.
Yeah, she's the Word on Fire mascot is representing, for sure.
Although she's not crazy about me. You know, she I guess she likes the ministry in general, but she's not crazy about me.
She's not crazy about anybody. That's her cross to bear, is her personality. Well, I want to have a talk today about something that's dear to both of our hearts. I'm a fitness trainer, and you've always been a big sports enthusiast. I want to talk about the parallels between sports and the spiritual life. So You've had a long history with sports in your life. You've always been kind of an athlete ever since you were a kid, right? Yeah.
My dad was an athlete. My dad played a lot of sports, and he was a gymnast back in the day. This is like in the 1940s. So he got us, my brother and me, got us going in sports right away. I remember distinctly my dad teaching me how to throw a baseball and the coordination of the arm and the leg, the kick and everything, And I have this vivid memory of like not getting it right at first, and like doing the throw and then kicking, So he taught us the basics, and we started playing organized sports by the time we were like 6 or 7. So baseball, football, basketball, I played a lot as a kid.
Well, and then did you play in high school as well?
Yeah, I played some basketball in high school. And then about midway through high school, I started getting interested in lots of other things, So it probably waned a bit, but I'd say between the ages of about 5 and 16, my major preoccupation was sports. I read my reading career really started with sports books. Jerry Kramer's book on the Green Bay Packers teams in the 1960s.
I've heard
Instant
you say
replay.
That. Yeah, that's great.
And then The Open Man, which was Dave DeBusschere. I'm dating myself here, but he was a great player for the New York Knicks back in the 60s and 70s, and wrote a really fine book. His roommate on the road, by the way, was Bill Bradley, who eventually became a U.S. senator, ran for president a couple times. Anyway, it's a wonderful book, and I read those like 10 times. I just love them. They were like stories of these championship seasons and all the ups and downs. Making the various teams. That was my main preoccupation as a kid. Baseball was my favorite sport. I was All-Star several times and MVP. So I was a good player as a kid.
There you go.
I was a good player. So I was really kind of obsessed with it. I discovered that I needed glasses when my batting average plummeted one year. I was a really good hitter, and then suddenly I was just missing the ball. And my father took me to the eye doctor. That's why I discovered I needed glasses.
Well, now you keep up. You're a golfer, and you're always on the exercise bike, and then you're also the fastest walker I've ever met in my life.
Although, who kept up with me very well was the Papal Ninja.
That's no surprise.
I don't know if we talked about that when I was on with Brandon, but the Papal Ninja, the guy from the American Ninja
we
Warriors.
mentioned it on an episode that he was coming out. And then you guys went for a walk?
We did on the beach, and we're walking along, and I said, "Are you having trouble keeping up with me?" And he said, "No." I said, "Everybody does. Everyone says I'm the fastest walker." So the Ninja and I did great together.
Well, yeah, you got to hang out with more ninjas, I guess, because I cannot keep up. I'm curious, what do you think makes sports good? Because there's a goodness to them. There's something about them up and down the ages. Since I'm thinking the first Olympics, it's been something that's kind of in us intrinsically as something that we love as a people.
Well, there's a lot of things you could look at. One is certain competitiveness that's built into us from our evolutionary background. And so we compete to survive. So once survival is kind of assured, that we still like to compete, and we kind of like to fight. I don't mean that in a negative, aggressive way, but we like to kind of test our capacity. So that's part of it. But I'd be close to the Greek philosophers here that sports have a very aesthetic dimension. The reason you watch sports, for example, is to see a great athletic display, which is beautiful. So use the terminology of integritas, consonantia, claritas, which apply to a picture or to a sculpture. They apply to a great athletic feat. Does it have wholeness, harmony, and radiance? And we'll use that spontaneously. We'll say, "Hey, beautiful catch!"
Yeah.
What a beautiful shot that was, And we're not just whistling Dixie there. I mean, we're recognizing something of great value. And I think there is, we'll develop a little bit more, but there is a real spirituality around play. And sports is a sort of elevated type of play at a very high level. You can play just in a very casual way, or you can play at a high level of competition and excellence, to play golf at that highest level, to play football at the highest level. But the operative word is play, and that's closely related actually to spirituality.
One of my favorite parallels that you've made, and you gave this talk at the World Meeting of Families in Philadelphia, and it went over famously well. People were tweeting about how you talked about Golf Digest and all this.
Yeah.
The comparison you make is between the rules of sports and the rules of religion. Give me a little information about that.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a serious athlete in whatever area it is, you like the rules because the rules are making you a better player. And by rules here, I mean the sort of disciplines that go into cultivating excellence. How do you swing a golf club? And I've said this a lot. I've played a lot of sports. I think the single hardest move in any sport is the golf swing. I really do. And you say, what, the ball's just lying there on the ground, and there's no one defending you?
Right.
No one's throwing the thing at you?
It's not moving.
It's not moving, but nevertheless, I stay with that. I think it's harder than hitting a curveball. I think it's harder than catching a football. I think it's harder than any move in sports. But my point there is there's all kinds of rules that govern a proper golf swing. The more you like golf, the more you like those rules, and you want to internalize them to make them so part of you that you can consistently hit it. The trouble is it's such a difficult move, and there are so many things involved in doing it right. That's why most of us do it wrong.
Right, I do.
Yeah, and when I played golf last time, and I got around the course and hit a handful of really decent shots. Now I've been at it for a long time, but I hit a handful of decent shots. So it goes because it's such a hard move. But the more you like the game, the more you want those rules in you. Give me more rules. You don't say, "Hey, back off the rules, man. They're oppressing me." No, they're liberating me.
Right.
Because the rules, once they get internalized, liberate you. Now, the same is true of a musical instrument. Same thing is give me more rules. Because the more I get in me, the freer I'm going to become at playing this game.
It's certainly no fun when you're doing it wrong.
Yeah. And it's also no fun getting the rules in you. I understand that. It's a hard slog. Playing piano, swinging a golf club, becoming a good person. See, all those things are very demanding because getting these rules in us is tough. Now, keep pressing that image, like in the moral life. Aristotle long ago knew about this, long before Christianity. If you've been habituated the wrong way, you need to do a lot of work to get habituated the right way. So you've been living your life in such a way that you tend to miss the middle ground, which he identifies as the virtuous path, right? You overdo it. You're excessive. And you've been doing it so long that way that the stick is bent the wrong way. So now you got to bend it back in the other direction, which takes a lot of effort. And the analogy there, golf is a perfect example. Most of us bad golfers spend a lot of our time hitting the ball wrong. So we're habituating ourselves to vice. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We're getting more vicious at golf. We're getting worse at it.
And the more you get frustrated, you certainly get more vicious.
And like they say, go to a driving range, just hit balls. No. If you're hitting them wrong, you're making yourself a worse player. So, hey, I was on the range for an hour. Yes, making yourself worse at golf.
Right.
So in a similar way, in the moral life, in the spiritual life, hey, I've been living a pretty satisfactory life. No, actually, man, you've been making yourself worse. Because you're habituating yourself to bad action. So getting a good instructor, a good coach in both golf and life is a good idea. So the role of a mentor, for example, a really good coach in sports, a mentor in the spiritual life is indispensable. How many? There are geniuses in sports, like people that just have this natural genius. I remember my friend Chip Beck, who was a great pro golfer. Chip was one of the best golfers on the planet 30 years ago. We became friends in Chicago, and he helped with Word on Fire. But I remember Chip said that I think his mom gave him an 8-iron when he was like 7 years old. And he went out in the backyard, and he just started hitting it. He just was like a
prodigy.
He was a golf genius. And, I hit an 8-iron well like once every 20 swings maybe.
Right.
He just had it. I mean, so there is that in the moral order too. But most of us, we need a lot of habituation.
You mentioned coaches and getting a good coach and everything like that. And that can be kind of tough love too. You talked about the idea of inclusivity and exclusivity of love in relation to coaches. Yeah,
and I'd say a couple things. I mean, one is a good coach is going to be blunt with you and is going to be tough on you and is going to tell you, no, you're still doing it wrong. He's not there to make you feel good about yourself. He's there to make you a better player, right? And that's a very important distinction. I sound like an old man now, but I mean, one of the problems today is that we're so obsessed with, being a nice guy and making people feel good about themselves that we're undermining a good coaching. If everyone gets the participation award and everyone's doing great, well, then no one's doing that great, and you're not going to improve. The second thing, I think you're alluding to it was an article I wrote some time ago. We've all faced this. At least people, my generation and older, faced it. That you go out for a team and you don't make it. You're cut from the team. You try it out, and you go there to look at the list of who made it, and I'm not on it. And you say, "Oh, what a jerk that coach is! I mean, how cruel!
Right.
I mean, couldn't you have found a space for this poor kid?" And the coach would go, "No, my job here is to have a winning team, and I want the players who do make the team to be able to play at a high level of excellence. And if they're burdened with all kinds of really bad players on the team, they can't practice at a high level, and it actually undermines the other people. And so you could say out of love for the better players, but also, I'll press this, out of love for the player that's cut. Because he might be saying, look, buddy, this isn't your thing. I mean, you're a great person. God bless you. But maybe basketball isn't your thing. And if I just keep telling you, oh, no, it is. Come on, you're on the team. And I just get more and more frustrated. So it could be an act of love to cut someone from a team, both for the players on the team and for the guy who's cut. And that's, tough. Yeah, but so it goes.
And that's love.
Love is willing the good of the other, right? It's not a feeling. It's not making people feel good about themselves. And that might fit into it somewhere. But in its essence, to love is to will the good of the other. See, and that's why it takes an extraordinary spiritual discipline to love. Because we're all tempted to take the path of least resistance, right? Make things as easy as possible. And, oh, sure, I'll let you. Come on, But is that, in fact, what's best for that person? Are you really willing that person's good? Yeah, but if I will his good, he's going to hate me forever. Yeah, okay, But the goal of life is not to be loved by everyone forever. The goal is to love, is to do the right thing, to will the good of the other, So that's a cool test. What are you after in life? What do you want? And the biblical idea, as Dostoevsky characterized it, is the harsh and dreadful thing that we call love.
And the church doesn't cut anyone, though.
Well, no, but again, mutatis mutandis, right, with all these comparisons. But the church does make demands, and the church does say no, and the church does say, I know this is difficult, but no, you can't do that.
Yeah, it's that
all the time.
The Cardinal George line about how, yes, you're welcome.
Yeah, right.
But on Christ's terms.
Yeah, which I whenever I can, I find the opportunity to say that. He was kind of making fun of the song, all are welcome in this place, which we still sing. There was a vogue there when we sang it all the time. All are welcome. Yes, he said, all are welcome at Mass on Christ's terms, not their own. Because what he sensed was the danger in that was, oh, sure, everyone's welcome. You're all great. You're all fine. No need to change. And that's not Christian language. You're welcome to join in the mystical body of Jesus and to conform your mind and heart and body and will to his. So that's a different game. But see, we're uneasy with that kind of tough love language.
You talk about conforming ourselves to Christ. In the Bible, Paul talks about running the race with perseverance. And what are some parallels you've noticed between the rigors of athleticism and the spiritual life?
Yeah, and I like that Pauline image. And people speculate. I mean, Paul probably as a young man liked sports or watched them or something. And that would have been well known in his kind of Hellenistic Greek culture, where the Olympics come from and all that. And he talks about wearing the laurel crown and all that. So he knew the world of sports. Paul talks about the discipline. Look, to get a little crown of leaves that withers in a few weeks, people put themselves through extraordinary discipline. How much more to wear the crown of eternal life, you know? So why would we think the spiritual path is less demanding, less rigorous, if becoming the number one runner or something, if that's rigorous, and God knows it is, how much more, you might say? I remember years ago when we were filming the Catholicism series, and we were at Loch Derg, that famous kind of dreadful place in the north of Ireland where people have gone for centuries for this penitential exercise.
Yeah.
And during one of the kind of asides, Mike Leonard, who was the producer there, asked me on camera, what is going on here? I mean, does this make any sense at all? And why would people put themselves through this tremendous? He just couldn't get it. And I said, this was like midsummer.
These people are like kneeling.
Yeah, that's right. They're on rocks and they're kneeling and they're walking on their knees. They're staying up all night.
I think that video is on YouTube. We'll share it on the wordonfireshow.com.
Yeah. But this was like midsummer. So I said, yeah, but Mike, back home right now, I was in Chicago at the time. Back home, the Chicago Bears are commencing 2-a-day workouts, right? So when they're trying to get a football team going, usually mid-late summer, they do this really intense thing. They work out all morning, take a little break for lunch, and then they're back at it for like 3 more hours. Many days in a row, 2-day workouts, wind sprints, the whole bit. And I said, what's that for? That's the ultimate goal, to win the Super Bowl in the National Football League. Well, okay, compare that to eternal life.
Right.
So why wouldn't you go through at least a comparable sort of discipline if you're interested in friendship with God, which is what the spiritual life's all about? So there's kind of a namby-pambyism that has taken over, that there's none of that in religion. That's just inappropriate. Come on. We accept it in almost every other aspect of life that we take seriously. You're a bodybuilder, trainer. I mean, the rigor and the effort and the demand and the waking up early and the.
And what's interesting is people find joy. I tell people that I'm training, I say, you won't make a transformation. These people are obese. They come to me to change their lives around. I say, you won't make a true transformation until you stop asking me how much do I have to do, and you start wondering how much can I do.
Yeah.
You have to actually embrace the joy of and the discipline of diet and exercise.
Yeah, so that. I mean, that's just part of life. And if someone says to you like, oh, I'm completely unwilling to put up with any discomfort, you'd say, well, I'll see you later. Right? But somehow in the spiritual order, we think that's reasonable.
Right.
Like I accept no discipline.
Or that it's bizarre that anyone would put themselves through any morbid.
But again, in your world, people do it all the time. They put themselves through an awful lot and it's a good thing to become physically fit and healthy and terrific. But I would say a fortiori in the spiritual order that you'd go through this kind of rigor and discipline.
Are there any other spiritual or philosophical masters who allude to sports and athleticism in their works?
Yeah, I know it's kind of a standard trope in some ways in the spiritual tradition. I'm trying to think of a particular figure that really emphasizes it. You're right in saying Paul. It's kind of our great biblical model. I don't know. I have to think about that more if there's a particular one. But the idea of a discipline, I mean, that's just standard. The different stages in the spiritual order, this is now Bernard and John of the Cross and Catherine of Siena. They all do that, that you've got to go through various stages, Teresa of Avila, the interior castle, etc. So they've all got that, the discipline. I think, Joe, that's what, in my experience, happened after the council, is that we kind of just dropped the idea of discipline in the spiritual life. It just seemed, I don't know. Look, God is love. Everyone's doing okay, except the fact that you've been accepted, and that's the spiritual life. And we've always said, no, all that stuff is true. God is love, and He accepts us despite our sin. He justifies us through grace and all that. But now off you go. Cooperate with grace, Now run the race. And now work out your salvation, as Paul says. I like that because, you're saved. Yeah, in one sense, that's true. But now work out your salvation.
With fear and trembling.
Yeah,
which
right.
is,
and that's the Catholic difference, is that we don't accept justification by grace alone. Grace first, as I've often said. If you get that wrong, the whole thing's off kilter. Of course, grace comes first. But now grace is cooperated with.
Right. You mentioned how people put themselves through all sorts of physical pain in the gym, and that ultimately it's good to work on your fitness and everything like that. But there are some preachers out there who would say that exercise and fitness is, at best kind of a distraction to the more important things in the spiritual life, and at worst, an entirely vain endeavor to be obsessing over your body and all that stuff.
And can it become that? Sure, because you're dealing with human beings, and so things will always go bad. And I do think for some people in our time, it's a kind of substitute religion. If you say, well, I don't really believe in God anymore, but man, do I believe in my own physical fitness. So I can make an idol of it, you can, with anything. And I think that's true. One thing I always find really funny is you look at those health magazines. Mm-hmm. I always think the descendants of Cotton Mather are the editors of those magazines. So the descendants of the Puritans.
Oh yeah.
So the 17th century Puritans said, "Man, you got to do this, and that, and if you do this, you got to make up." And then you read these health magazines and oh, you ate that pizza, so now you got to go through this, and that, and these calories got to be balanced with this amount of. And so I suppose it can be a weird substitute,
Yeah.
Looked at positively, I would say it's an integral approach to the spiritual life. As Father Steve, quoting Thomas Aquinas, always says that the body is in the soul, not vice versa. The soul contains the body. It's a very important thing, meaning the body is ingredient in your spiritual life. It's not like I got my spiritual life over here and then my bodily life. The body is contained by the soul, Aquinas says. And that's extremely important insight, it seems to me.
And that's not very puritanical at all.
On the contrary.
Right.
On the contrary. It takes the body very seriously as ingredient in the spiritual life. And so, a healthy body, that matters spiritually. So it can become idolatry, sure, at the limit, but at its best, it's a very good thing.
Well, now it's time for our listener question, and our question today comes from Matt, and I think he asks a question that does relate to what we're talking about today. So let's listen to Matt and his question about leisure and the Sabbath.
Hi, Bishop. My name is Matt from Madison, Wisconsin. I recently read Joseph Pieper's essays on leisure as the basis of culture, in which he writes extensively on the human need for activity that transcends the workaday world. I'm wondering if you can comment on how our celebration of the Sabbath has changed over the years and what role you see it playing in the future of our society. Thank you.
Yeah, I love that question. I love Joseph Pieper. I've read for years, and that is a great book, Leisure, the Basis of Culture. Yes, I think the loss of the Sabbath is a huge problem in our culture, actually. The Sabbath day is a day for play in the richest sense of the term, meaning it's a day for useless things. And the most useless thing, which means the highest thing, because it's not subordinated to an end beyond itself, the most useless thing of all is the worship of God, which is why it's the most beautiful, important thing to do, and why we do it on a Sabbath day when we're not distracted by other practical activities. When the Sabbath is compromised, the spiritual life is compromised. Is it compromised today? Absolutely. I've noticed in my own lifetime a sea change, a massive change, when it comes to Sunday. Sunday used to feel different, Things were closed on Sunday. I remember my father, saying when we were kids, we better get gas in the car Saturday night because, of course, no gas station would be open on Sunday.
Really? No gas station?
Oh, absolutely.
That's not in my lifetime.
Things were closed on Sunday because people went to church, and it was Sabbath day. It was a texture that you don't work on Sunday. I think it's. I really mean this. One of the great spiritual tragedies of our time is the loss of Sunday. Sunday is now like just Saturday 2.0, right? It's another version of Saturday. just a day of rest and relaxation. But the purpose of the Sabbath day ultimately is to give praise to God. Now, accompanying that are other types of leisure activities. That's true. And that's why Sunday is good for, watching football and reading a book or spending time with your family. But see, all of that clusters around the central uselessness of the Mass or of the worship of God. And again, I hope I'm clear. When I say useless, I mean the best. Useless things are the best things. But see, when Sunday just becomes Saturday 2.0.
Football Sunday.
Yeah, or what really bugs me, and this happens in Catholic schools, is that the coaches are all scheduling sports events Sunday morning. Why are the kids practicing or having games at 10 o'clock on Sunday morning? Nobody did that when I was a kid because you went to church on Sunday morning and schedule a practice or a game. Catholics are doing it. Catholic schools do it. And that's not a trivial thing. That's a real loss in our culture. Sunday should feel different. It should be a day when you don't work in the ordinary sense. Anyway, that's a good topic for another day.
Well, thank you everyone for tuning in to the Word on Fire show. I want to give you a couple things to look at as you consider your own fitness endeavors and you consider your own spiritual endeavors. First, we've got this great article from our very own CEO of Word on Fire, Father Steve Bruno. He wrote a Priest's 7 Principles for Health and Fitness, and you can read that blog, get that information on wordonfireshow.com. And then also, we have Bishop Barron's Advent Reflections. I want to make sure you pick those up so you can work on your spiritual formation as we head towards Christmas. For that, you can go to wordonfire.org/Advent, or again, wordonfireshow.com, and we'll have the link there. Thanks again, and we'll see you back here next week for the Word on Fire show.